Our next topic is brought to us by Buckeye State Credit Union. If you're unfamiliar with them, let me introduce you to their financial friend you didn't know you needed until right now. Buckeye State Credit Union is a local brand offering a wide range of products, from checking accounts to home equity loans of credit and auto loans. They have some of the lowest rates around and are committed to serving Northeast Ohio. The Cleveland location in Shaker Heights, but they have 5 brick-and-mortar locations across the state. Buckeye State Credit Union is here to help make your life easier. They make banking more convenient, always putting the customer first, so you leave feeling cared for, valued, and respected. Connect, simplify, and adapt. Those are the core values that make Buckeye State Credit Union the right choice for you. Head to buckeyecu.org for more information. Buckeye State Credit Union, your money simplified. We have a fun topic to end the show that has nothing to do with Cleveland. So we're going to get our last
Cleveland.
Cleveland.
That you've come up with again?
It's not really a game.
Oh, okay.
It's we're just going to have a discussion to figure out a top 5. I couldn't put it in a specific order.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to discuss it with you guys. But before we do that, the Browns have had an undrafted free agent make the 53-man roster 2 years in a row. Ronnie Hickman 2 years ago. We had Javion Cohen, the offensive guard, last year. They have signed 11 undrafted free agents to at least come to camp. So I asked you guys, of the 11, who do you think has the best chance to make the actual 53-man roster, make it 3 years in a row? Jason, you were the first to respond, so I will give you first, or let you go first. Tell us who you think of all the rookies has the best chance to make the Browns' 53-man roster.
Well, the one position where I think the Browns have done a nice job of scouting is in the secondary. Andrew Berry was the defensive back at Harvard. Kevin Stefanski played safety at Penn. So these are guys that know the position well. They've had luck with that with that spot in the past. So I went with Donovan McMillon from Pittsburgh. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on him. I just picked a guy that, well, that's the spot that they've had a lot of success with in the past. McMillon had over 100 tackles at Pitt. Very productive player there, started at Florida. And so I try to keep this relatively simple. Yeah, you could go receiver because I think I think we expected them to draft a receiver and they didn't. They need to get younger across the offensive line, so that's another spot where I think it's kind of obvious. I just went with McMillon because that's the hit rate that they've had in the past. They've done a pretty nice job of identifying defensive backs who can help and develop them. So give me McMillon. We're all throwing darts here at this one.
Yeah.
Well, you picked the same guy. Why'd you
Well,
pick him?
I did, but I have a second guy because you told me. I answered this morning. Like I said, you asked me to be on the show a little while before, so I was like, all right. I looked at it and I said, well, the Browns only have one safety. First of all, including I forgot his name already. McMillon. The Browns only have 5 safeties right now on the roster, on their 90-man roster or whatever number they're at. And 4 of the 5, including McMillon, are undrafted guys over the last couple of years. Now, one of them is Ronnie Hickman, who's played. The 2 backups right now were undrafted last year. Grant Delpit's the only player on this team that's been drafted at safety. However, because Jason picked it, I want to be a little different. Mike, put up the list again.
Oh, you're different, all right.
In a great way. Unafraid, baby. Let's go. Skip to the next page because I'm going with this guy, the long snapper, Brent Matisic.
You know what?
TCU.
I actually looked at that too.
Best chance to make the roster. They don't have a long snapper.
They cut Hewlett.
They let go with Hewlett. He's gone.
Bo, that's the right answer. That was my pick.
So Brent Matisic is a guy, he's battling for the long snapper role with some other undrafted guy from last year, I think, who's never really played much. So, yeah, he's got a good chance to make – he's got probably a 50-50 shot to make the roster. Nobody else has 50% chance, so there you go.
This is like trying to predict where the next lightning strike's going to be.
This is like trying to find the most underrated Browns player.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but this is even worse.
This is even harder.
None of us know anything about any of these guys.
No.
Can we put up the list again? I think we may have misspelled my guy's name.
Did I?
He's not knowing who's making these lists, I'm not a surprise.
You got him as Gartanian. No, go back.
I may have totally missed him.
Yeah, no, you've got him as
it's a D.
D'Artagnan
It's D.
Tinsley?
D'Artagnan. I made a bio.
It's
Steve,
D'Artagnan.
259, please.
So why did I go with D'Artagnan Tinsley? I like that name.
Cool name.
I like that name a lot. Like, that's one of those names that he might be the only guy in the United States of America named D'Artagnan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe there's more. I've never heard of them. He plays the offensive line. I think that's an area where the Browns could probably. They didn't draft anybody there, and they need someone.
They got to get younger. They've got to get younger there.
They've got to get younger at the offensive line. So I focused in on it's going to be an offensive lineman that makes this team as an undrafted free agent, and I loved the name. Really jumped out at me. Kind of rolls off the tongue. Sounds like a NFL player, doesn't it? D'Artagnan Tinsley.
Speaking of good names, we talked about a couple last week, but there was a guy who got called up for the Mets yesterday and then got sent right back down after the game. But his first name is Blade.
Oh, wow. What position?
Pitcher.
Oh, that's great. Blade.
Baseball.
Is that his real name?
I don't know.
Or a nickname?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
You know, when we're talking about undrafted guys and everything, I sent a clip to our group chat from Eric DeCosta, the Ravens GM. It was late Friday night. I don't know if anyone actually watched it or not.
That was fascinating.
I found it really fascinating. Eric DeCosta, the Ravens GM, was doing a podcast where he talked about, you never really know. Like, he basically admitted, we don't know either. Like, the number 1 pick versus the 44th pick. We don't know. So the more bites at the apple that you get, the better.
That's why you want to accumulate picks.
So he was an advocate of the Brown strategy. Could we play that?
Do you remember who? I'll find it. Yeah,
it was in our group chat from Friday night. If that helps at all,
who,
it was like
who produced it? What was it? Was it on?
Podcast? I never. Yeah, it was a podcast. I didn't recognize the podcast. It might have been Ravens. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he was just talking about I likened it to the Brown strategy of trading down and accumulating more picks, and everyone kills them for it. And it's the analytics thing to do. Well, there's a high functioning team that believes in it
gets
as well.
The draft right more than anyone.
They get it right. Yeah.
To be fair, Jason, people kill them for it because they always F up the picks.
Yes.
If they had not always F'd up the picks, we wouldn't kill them for it.
And that's the point I'm making is it's not the philosophy that's flawed. It's the outcome, I guess, or the fact that they don't hit on these picks. But I just found it really fascinating of a really high functioning team that's won Super Bowls saying, yeah, man, the draft is a total crapshoot.
Yeah.
We don't know either.
Yeah.
And
sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
The more swings you get, the better.
The more bingo cards you have in the hall, the better chance you are of winning bingo.
Yeah.
And so I like that philosophy. I do. And you're right, Bull. The Browns have subscribed to that philosophy.
Yeah.
They have been a pick accumulator.
Yeah.
They've also been a pick annihilator. Because
that's well said. Yeah.
I knew something was coming, so I didn't take a sip.
Yeah,
because I knew it was coming.
They gather them and then they waste them.
And so that's why fans are frustrated by a trade down at this point because it's like, well, okay, you keep doing that, but then you keep screwing up the picks.
Yeah, just get them right.
Yeah.
And that's what the Ravens do.
I had the soundbite if we want to hear it.
Yeah.
It's from the Ravens Lounge, which is a Raven.
Yeah, how long is it?
It's from the 2 minutes.
Yeah,
2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Heck yeah.
And Thor, our guy who came on the show pre-draft, was the one who tweeted this out. But this is from the Ravens Lounge podcast, which is the Ravens team podcast. Similar to what Andrew Siciliano does for the Browns.
Yep.
This is the Ravens version of that. Steve, take tag word. Let's hear Eric DeCosta.
For me, an important study called The Loser's Curse by Richard Thaler, who's an economist, and Cade Massey, who's a professor at Penn now. And the idea of it basically is that teams simply don't do any better drafting than anyone else. You're all going to be about the same, right? So the idea that you're going to trade up, and basically that the draft is inherently sort of a luck-driven process. Now, I don't believe that, but there is an element of luck involved. So if you think about that and if you accept that premise, then you're trading up for a player that you think is better than anyone else, right? And you think that team's going to draft him.
Right.
But most of the time, they're not going to draft that player. And so what we've seen over the years is that player is probably going to fall to you. Could he be selected? Yes, but there's no guarantees that player is going to be better than the player that you end up getting.
Yeah.
So they call it the loser's curse because the team at the top, it's like, oh, he's got the first pick in the draft. Well, you know what? The player that they select, we've seen this many times. There's no guarantees that player is going to be better than the player that gets selected at 25 or 30 in the first round. And so all things being equal, I know I'm doing a lot of talking about this, but it's a passion of mine. All things being equal, right? The fact that no one really knows who's going to be better than anyone else, the only rational approach is to get more at-bats, is to pick more. And so what we've seen over the last 5 years, but especially this year, everyone seems to be drafting players, the same players. So it's like going to a restaurant with 20 of your best friends, and there's 20 things on the menu, but all 20 of you are ordering one of the same 3 entrees. right? You're all getting the steak and you're all getting the pasta. Maybe a few guys are getting the crab cakes, but nobody's going after the vegetarian option, right? And nobody's getting the lamb. Everybody's eating the same things. That's kind of what the draft has become in some ways. And I don't know if that's because of the incredible media coverage, all the so-called draft experts, right? All the people that are putting up mock drafts and consensus boards and things like that. But for me, the idea of having more picks means I have the chance of getting more players. For me,
the interesting thing about that, this year they had in the first five rounds, the Ravens had 5 picks. In round 6, they had 5 picks.
Yeah, but how often do
Now,
6-round picks pan out?
That's what I was just going to say. What I was just going to say was they must have made the calculation that there's going to be a lot of guys available in rounds 6 and 7 that we would want. So in other words, like even though we kept looking at this draft class saying it's a terrible quarterback draft class, well, maybe their personnel people said, this really is a bad quarterback class, but we've got more running backs and linebackers rated as draftable grades than in any year in the past 10.
Yeah, sure.
I also think it was an anomaly with the amount of picks that they had late. I think it was some compensatory picks. I don't know
how they got them all. I just know they had 5.
It was they had 3 compensatory picks of those 6.
I had to do some stuff with the Justin Tucker thing at the Combine, and I remember digging on them a little bit, and they drafted a kicker. I think this is the end of Tucker in Baltimore. And the one thing that was pointed out to me was how many picks that they had this year later in the draft. I don't know that I want to draw the conclusion to what he said to this draft specifically.
Right, yeah.
Just in general, just the thought process of just keep swinging.
Right,
I thought it was fascinating for an NFL GM to say, we don't know either.
Yeah, I like the honesty. Well, it's so obvious based on what's actually happened.
And how, I would be interested
I don't buy the team that some teams don't draft better than others. That's just not true.
And he said, he pushed back on that a little bit, too.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
But he really didn't like the idea of trading up, which is, I'd be curious now to go back and look and see. I don't recall Baltimore moving up.
Didn't they move up to get Lamar?
Did they?
They did.
There you go. That worked out for them.
That doesn't mean they
may not. That might not have been their plan, but when he slipped and slipped and slipped, they said, "Wow, he's still there. Let's get him."
Yeah.
They could, but they might have 10 trade downs for every 1 trade up.
I mean, especially at that position.
Right. Sure. Then it's a little bit of a different.
The other thing too with the Ravens, you're talking about a team that has very few slots to fill every year. The Ravens draft as well as anybody. I firmly believe that.
No, Jay, I have a little proof of that real quick.
Okay.
I was just looking up for 6-round picks. That was too far down to get any consistency.
Right.
Since 2017, they've had at least 2 third-round picks in every draft except last year.
Wow.
You ready to hear the hit rate on these third-round picks?
I'd love to hear it because I know ours is horrible.
From 2017. In 2017, it took Tim Williams and Chris Wormley. Wormley turned out to be a longtime player. Williams never panned out. 2018, Mark Andrews, Orlando Brown Jr.
Jeez.
Pretty good.
Both great picks.
Holy cow.
2019.
In the 3rd round.
Yep.
We've
Third
got
round.
Anthony Schwartz and David Bell.
Yeah.
2019, Miles Boykin and Jalen Ferguson. Boykin's done in his career. Ferguson never really panned out.
They're both busts. Those were not good picks.
2020, 4 third-round picks.
Wow.
Tyree Phillips, Malik Harrison, Devin Duvernay, and Justin now nominee Matabuke. Matabuke got paid big bucks this past offseason.
I don't know about the rest of those guys.
Duvernay's been an all-pro return guy.
Yeah,
he's pretty good.
I mean,
okay,
he's contributed.
And Tyree Phillips is still with them as their swing tackle.
That's amazing. And that was what, 2020?
2020.
That was COVID year.
2021, Ben Cleveland, who just got paid. They didn't re-sign him, but he got paid in Denver. And Brandon Stevens, who's still with them as a defensive secondary.
And when you before you continue, Mike, you also get more picks because the more good players you have to let some of them go, and that's how you get the compensatory picks.
That's right.
Go ahead, Mike.
And then the last 3 years, it's too early to tell on any of these guys, but Travis Jones, Trent Simpson, who started last year, and Adisa Isaac, a defensive lineman who had 4 sacks last year.
Yeah, we don't know. Early. That's
Too
some
early-
production,
too early to
though.
tell.
Overall,
That's
that
from
one
the third
draft
round
with
pick.
Andrews and Orlando Brown.
that's incredible.
Well, I mean,
God.
look
That'll
what they
make an
did.
entire-
Look what they did in their first draft as the Baltimore Ravens.
Right.
When it would have been the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
Of course, they never would have made those picks if they had stayed in Cleveland. But to me, what that really underscores is I do push back on that notion that we all draft the same. That's ridiculous. No, you don't. I think the Ravens are as good at the draft as any team.
Sure.
They're at the top of the talent cycle. They never. When do they cycle through? They don't.
Almost never.
Almost never.
Because they hit on mid-round picks.
They hit on the mid-round picks, and here's the other thing. So the holes that they have, because they're winning 11 games every year, the holes that they have are maybe special teams and depth. And when your holes are special teams and depth,
Yeah.
you can tailor those picks a lot easier than you can franchise quarterback.
Sure, and also the better you are, the more you could bring along slowly your later picks. You don't have to rush them and play them before they're ready, because it's like, well, we drafted this linebacker, but he doesn't need to play much because we don't need him. But in 3 years, he's got to be ready to go. So 2 years, and there's no pressure to play him, and we got all these guys, and they're learning from talented players.
And the other thing that we didn't mention, but is obviously true, winning culture.
Yeah,
like these guys are coming into a culture, and they're learning how to be a pro at the best place to learn how to be a pro.
That's right.
Where in Cleveland, when they come in, they may be learning how to be a pro at the worst place to learn how to be a pro.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Well.